Okay. One Piece chapter 1107. I'm gonna say this, man. Like last chapter, I was kind of looking at this and going, okay, it's cool to see Dorry and Brogy back, but then to see that they got their entire pirate crew with them, I was happy and it is what I wanted, but at the same time, I wasn't necessarily fully satisfied here. And what I mean about this is that it's one of those times where the payoff is really good. Don't get me wrong, the payoff is really, really good. I just feel like this chapter was missing something. Like, I don't know if it's because I expected more with the giant pirate crew or what, but I came away from this chapter feeling empty, even though there were moments where I absolutely laughed. Like when you got Kizaru and he's telling Sanji, like, hey, if love is able to hit harder and overpower light than physics as we know it is dead, like that's a bar. I laughed when I got to it. I don't know. Like I said, I wasn't all the way enamored with this chapter. It was not bad. Like, please don't get that mistaken. It wasn't a bad chapter. I don't know. This don't hit the same. This don't hit the same, but I'm hoping this is a setup chapter. So we open up this chapter. We got Dorry and Brogy. They're leading the way. You got all their pirates. They're storming the area. We get the huge payoff where Usopp and Nami, both of them are just like, oh my God, I can't believe that they're here. Usopp's got tears in his eyes. That was a huge payoff right there. That line where he's saying, like, I was worried that we would get to Elbaph and we would never see them again. That was a fear that I had. Because I was like, man, okay, so we're clearly going to Elbaph. And I was like, man, you got to have Dorry and Brogy there. So it was one of those things like, I'm like Usopp. He spoke for me right there. He spoke to my soul right there. And yet at the same time, even with like the reminder of what happened with Little Garden, which I understand when you got to do that. It's smart by Oda to kind of give a brief refresher, not necessarily go into everything that happened with not CP9, but with Baroque works there. I understand keeping that at a bare minimum, but this is one of those times where, I don't know, like this section in particular felt like it was missing something for me. Now, the next thing we get is that we learn, like, the Straw Hats are told, like, hey, like, this is big news about what's going on right now. And, like, the world government is going to twist this. But this is in the news. Everyone knows that you guys are here right now. And we jump over, and you have this moment where Lilith is, once again, getting on a Brook, and she's like, dude, like, you can't stop this ship. You can't stop this ship. Like, we have to have a plan for this. And as this is going on, you got Jinbe communicating with Zoro, and Zoro is busy fighting Rob Lucci. And I wish we actually saw more of this. I would very, very much be interested to see if the anime extended this fight and we got to see more of this. I understand we skipped the scene because, like, from a pacing perspective, you don't need it. But, like, this was something I was very interested in wanting to see. Maybe this had something to do with me feeling a little let down reading this chapter, because I was looking forward to see more of Rob Lucci versus Zoro. And I think it's impressive, just given what we saw Rob Lucci do earlier in this arc, and to see Zoro holding his own. And it looks like he feels confident he can win that fight. I don't think it's just general bravado, but it's one of those things where Rob Lucci is dropping the line to him, saying, like, usually the way that you're talking is the way the victor's talking. And you see the difference in philosophy. Had this been another pirate crew, I think what Rob Lucci suggested might have happened. So Rob Lucci says, that's the problem with you Straw Hats. You can't leave behind a crew member for the sake of the betterment of the crew. If they left you behind, they'd be able to escape from here and there would be no problems at all. And yet, because they're waiting for you, they're probably all going to get killed. And it's one of those things where he's telling the truth. And if anyone has the right to weigh in on how other pirate crews would behave, it's definitely Rob Lucci, just given the nature of his work. And what I like about that is that Zoro completely pushes back and Zoro is continuing the fight. And then when we turn the page and we move away from it, that's where I think now I'm thinking about it, that's where a lot of my disappointment came in. Like I wanted more with the giant pirate crew, and I wanted more with Rob Lucci and with Zoro. Again, I get why for pacing reasons you don't need it. Because like having Luffy with Gear 5 and Saturn there, you can't fit everything into one chat. Trust me, I get it. You know, it's something that like I've talked about on the Naruto channel with the Boruto fans. So like, I want 100 different things to happen in one chapter, and it's like it's not going to happen. You only get a certain number of pages. So I understand it. I'm not knocking it. I hope the anime expands on this though. Now we then shift over, and we have the moment where Bonnie, she's got tears in her eyes. Luffy's like, "Hey, silly, what are you crying for?" And it's this completely unserious nature of Luffy on display, which I absolutely love. And Luffy's like, "What do you mean you're looking for me? We've been together this whole time." It's just like, dummy, I didn't know you were Nika. And it just shows you how special Luffy is. Luffy's like, Nika, I'd never heard of that name before. Like, I'm Luffy. I don't know this Nika person. Is Nika a type of food? He didn't say that part, but that's kind of like the mentality that Luffy's taking with this. And as you see this, you have Saturn looking super pissed off. Super pissed off because in front of him is the very thing that the world government was trying to prevent, which is the gum fruit awakening, basically being the Nika fruit, the human fruit model Nika awakening. And it's got somebody in Luffy, and like Luffy's just the perfect spirit for it. And just in the way that he's able to inspire the Straw Hats here, it just shows that the fruit chose the right person. And we get a couple of really beautiful drawn panels here. So like the first one that really stood out of this entirety of the chapter is when Luffy, after telling Bonnie, like, hey, like when you want to start throwing punches, you got to throw punches this way. And you have the moment where he uses the Gum Dawn Gatling. And you just see the side of Saturn's face and like the weight in which it's drawn, where you see the impact. I thought that was very good, like from the shading to like the contrast, so the way that Saturn's face is just shown in the agony in it. And I like how it's another contrast to how Gear 5 is presented, because like Gear 5 is the most cartoonish transformation that I've seen in just about any anime in general. Like, it's not too many I can think of that are more wonky and off the rails as Gear 5. But to see the seriousness and just the overall weight in which those punches are hitting, Oda's talented. Like, Oda's talented. It's something that I talk about this repeatedly. The more that you get used to his art style and the more you appreciate what it is that he's doing, the man is a fucking genius in the way that he does his art. Like, I don't throw that term out loosely. He's a fucking genius in the way that he does his art. Now, the other panel that really stands out is that after you have Vegapunk and he's explaining like, hey, like Bonnie, you guys need to go, leave me behind. I'm going to die. I know enough about science. And it's like a double-edged sword because, you know, he's saying I know enough about medical science, but it's also like, hey, I know enough about science where the world government's never going to let me live anyway. And he's trying to do the right thing. And in a way, you look at this and it's Vegapunk trying to make redemption for himself. He's trying to essentially make good for what he did to Kuma and taking all those years from Bonnie. I get it. And I understand why they're setting this up for a Vegapunk redemption. I mean, like, that's coming. I don't think he's dying here. And that brings me to the second panel. So after all that's done, you have the moment where Kizaru says, like, you're going to die whether you move or not, so just go ahead and accept your fate. And Sanji shows up and he kicks the laser beam. And just the way that whole thing is drawn, where you got Bonnie and Sanji, it's like, dude, like, this is borderline some Drake shit right here. But like, when Sanji kicks away, and after you get past that very beautifully drawn entire middle panel, and you see Kizaru just shocked, and you have Usopp like, oh, is it Frankie? Frankie's like, I can't believe that he kicked away a laser beam. When Sanji says that love is stronger than light, again, that it's like, I get it, man. And like, to his defense, I don't think he knows that Bonnie is 10 years old, I think. But dog, that's a minor. I know she looks older, but like, that's a minor, man. Like, that's a minor. Like, dude, that's not good. You not like us, dog. Hey, sorry to Drake fans, man. I love Drake, man. If I had to do it, I couldn't help it. But it's like, dude, I screamed internally when I got that line. Now, the next thing we get is we see, and I fell for it for a second too. We see Captain Devon, or not even Captain Devon, but the sixth ship captain of the Blackbeard pirates, Devon. You know, when she shows up and she's talking to Kizaru, and she's making her, well, not talking to Kizaru, she's talking to Saturn, because Kizaru is talking to Sanji, and Kizaru's telling Sanji, like, I'm going to take your head back with me to Navy headquarters. I gotta save face. I gotta leave here or something. But when Devon starts talking, I, for a second, went, wait, is that Blackbeard? Because the way she's drawn. And, like, it makes sense because they're related, just because of her name. But the other thing is that when I'm looking, my first thought went to, did Ivankov get his hands on Blackbeard? And then that's why I had to say, wait a second, that makes no absolute sense. But this is where you can tell Oda is setting up for something bigger with the world government, because we're seeing more of the unraveling happening. Like, it's very slowly happening ever since Punk Hazard, but now it's really starting to speed up, where Devon's like, yeah, you know, this bloodline, we want the world. That's what we want, you know, because like Saturn's like, what do you guys want? It's the world. And we learn, like, okay, Blackbeard's bloodline is a very special blood. That, like, we've known that, but just to see that the story is acknowledging that, and you have Saturn be the one that's publicly saying it to somebody from that bloodline, that's another reason why I'm like, Oda, I don't know where he's taking this. This is clearly building up seeds towards a final arc. Like, I get the feeling that what we're building towards is not necessarily Blackbeard as a final villain. Like, it feels almost like Blackbeard might be a dark horse final villain. Like, there's all this attention on Emu and on the world government and on the Five Elders. And there's even a line like, I can't believe the Five Elders came down from the perch like this. Like, there's enough there where you want to feel like One Piece ends on some giant war. Like, the more that I'm thinking about it, and we're like, fuck Karabu. Like, I'm like, he shows up at the end of the chapter. Just go ahead and get that out the way now. I don't care for him. But, like, the more that I think about it, like, I really think that Blackbeard, it might be Blackbeard. As much as I don't want it, I think it might be Blackbeard. Like, Oda's gotten to a point where I can trust him regardless. Don't get me wrong, I can trust what he's doing regardless, because he's done a good job on storytelling. Even though, again, I didn't necessarily care for this chapter, it's still a good chapter. And I know that in like 100 chapters, I'm going to look back at this and go, hey, dummy, I can't believe I missed this. And so that's going to bring me to my chapter question for you guys. Who do you think right now is going to be the final villain of One Piece? Like, who is the dark horse candidate for final villain? Is it as simple as Emu? Or could it be Shanks? Could it be Blackbeard? Who do you think the final villain is going to be? Let me know down in the comment section below. But as always, guys, like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching until then. Have an awesome day, guys.